Hello, all, and welcome to tonight's beer review. One of the latest ones I've done. It's past 9 o'clock, and we will be. And I'm going to. Oh, sorry, I forgot to go and do the very important part of this review. And I am dubbing this review the "Work Training is Cancelled" review. So might as well review beers review. Yeah, that took a lot of thought. So, yeah, my work training was canceled, so might as well go and review beers. And what will we be reviewing? Well, it's now the autumn season, not quite October, still September, but pumpkin beer time. So 4 pumpkin beers were given to me as part of a box set by my dad and stepmom, and they wanted me to review it, and I'm kind of hoping I give positive reviews because I'm always afraid to go and give like negative reviews to beers that were gifted to me, obviously. But at the same time, I also like to preserve my sense of honesty, so I'm hoping these are great. And what will we be reviewing? This is from Elysian. This is Night Owl Pumpkin Ale, 6.7 ABV. So this is their base pumpkin ale. The rest of the ones I'll be reviewing. So tomorrow I'm going to be reviewing the pumpkin imperial ale. But let's read the label, shall we? Night Owl Pumpkin Ale. Our original pumpkin ale brewed with pumpkin, roasted in raw pumpkin seeds, and spiced in conditioning with nutmeg, clove, cinnamon, ginger, and allspice. Okay, so a lot of pumpkin, a lot of spices. 6.7, also pretty heavy ABV. Makes you wonder how big the imperial is going to be. So, we're going to be pouring it out into the normal glass. Oh yeah, smell them spices. Gave it a fairly vigorous pour, but not much head formed. So, a cloudy reddish brown with a thin beige head. Very red, and I can smell the ginger. I can smell the allspice and nutmeg, cinnamon, cloves. All of that is there. Smells like fresh pumpkin pie. You can smell that the malts underneath are sweet. If I remember reading correctly, the malts in this are Crystal Turo, and the hops are Horizon hops. Not much hops apparent in the nose, just maybe perhaps a very subtle floral note. Well, onto the palate, shall we? Fairly thick and chewy mouthfeel. Actually, pretty chewy mouthfeel. But at the same time, it hides its alcohol very well. Doesn't taste like a 6.7. Tastes a little bit closer to a 6.0. Very biscuity hops. I mean, biscuity malts. But that very thick mouthfeel I associate with pumpkin gourds. Up front, initial hop bitterness. Not too strong, but definitely apparent. Followed by an effervescent note of spice and a sweetness on the palate in the long finish. To me, the two most apparent spice notes on the palate, in the sense of in the mouth, are the clove and the ginger, which is a nice turnaround. And usually the nutmeg and cinnamon are much more predominant. The finish on the palate itself, on the tongue, is sweet. And underneath that, a roastiness that belies the roasted pumpkin seed. That's probably what's lending that roasty note there. The pumpkin gourd note really only shows itself in the thickness of the mouthfeel and the roundness of the mouthfeel. I wish it had a touch more vegetal notes there that really bring out the pumpkin, you know. And pumpkin is so subtle that it really rarely ever shows up in these pumpkin beers. So all in all, excuse me. So all in all, I'm wishing for perhaps a bit more of a pumpkin note, pumpkin gourd note to it, but nicely complex and not overly spiced. So I like how all the flavor aspects sort of change and pop out at various times with this beer. Drinks fairly easily for a 6.7, that's for sure. As it warms up, cinnamon, nutmeg, and allspice showing up a bit more in the mids along with the hops in the sense of hop bitterness. Transitioning nicely to that roasted note in the long finish underneath the sweetness. It's a really interesting sensation. There's that sweetness there, and kind of underneath that, as almost like a base note, is that roastiness. By no means as roasty as, say, like a stout or a porter, but definitely roasty. And also nutty, too. So, what can I say about this beer? So, it's a flagship of the pumpkin ales, and looking through this, Elysian really does a lot of pumpkin ales, comparatively speaking to many brewers who don't touch the style. And that's because the style is fairly polarizing. A lot of purists don't like it, which is strange in this era of milkshake stouts and milkshake IPAs and whatnot, fruit purees and beer. I mean, this is just kind of the OG of flavored adjunct beers. So while by no means being that sort of et in Arcadia ego of pumpkin ale beers, being, and I like to remind people because I don't really review these too much, pumpkin ale is what got me into craft beer after basically only drinking adjunct lagers and malt liquor through my college years, and let's be honest, a little bit before too, though I was never that much of a partier before 21. And so I kind of have a soft spot in my heart for it. But it ever since then, any pumpkin ale that I've tried, it's never ever been as great as that first pumpkin ale that I had that Halloween back in, what year was it? Either 2003, 2004, thereabouts. Maybe even earlier. Yeah. I know it was after 2001, but before like 2006. So somewhere, I went to a Halloween party, saw this for sale, brought it to the party, and it's been a long story ever since. But yeah, this is one of the better ones I've had in that it is not a pumpkin spice bomb, which is what a lot of these pumpkin beers end up being. There is definite pumpkin character there, mostly in the mouthfeel and in the flavor added by the roasted and raw seeds. I'm still looking for that magical memory, that thing that hits me where it was like, wow, this beer is really something. It tastes like pumpkin. You know, um, and yeah. So if you like the style, this is definitely one to go and try. So I'm kind of glad I could give this positive review. If you don't like the style, well, it's not going to change your mind about it. I dug it, and yeah, that's your beer review for tonight, folks. Cheers.